Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, presented by Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And I am excited about my next guest. He is the voice of the Opelika Bulldogs, works for Kicker 97.7 in Opelika. Please welcome to the show, Van Riggs.
Hey, thanks so much, Richard. Appreciate you having me.
Van, like I always do with my guests that come on to the Sports Beat for the very first time, just tell my audience how you got into broadcasting, how long have you been doing it, and how long have you been the voice of the Opelika Bulldogs?
Sure, Richard. I got started in radio right out of Auburn University. I grew up in Montgomery, and when I came to Auburn, I've never left, and we made Opelika our home. I actually am working at the same group of radio stations that I started interning with at Auburn, which is pretty crazy. So I've been here over 15 years now, and I took over longtime voice of the Opelika Bulldogs, D-Mar Mitchell, back in the end of the 2017 season. So the 2018 season was my first season with Opelika. Before that, I spent 10 great years with Smith Station High School. And before that, I spent a couple of seasons actually with Lee Scott Academy when I first got started into football play-by-play. During that time frame, also, I spent about 5 years working at Auburn University doing some fill-in baseball play-by-play work with Rod Bramlett when he was with the program, and Andy Burcham, and spent some great years doing baseball play-by-play too. My real full-time job, though, I work with iHeartRadio, and I'm our VP of programming for Auburn, our market in Auburn and Opelika, and then our market in Columbus, Georgia, and Albany, Georgia. So morning show on 97.7 Kicker FM during the mornings, and then in the afternoons on South 106.1 in Columbus, and pretty much all over East Alabama and West Georgia. I do the afternoon show from 3 until 7. So it's a packed slate, but I love it, enjoy it, and I'm very fortunate to do what I do, which is I love the Friday night football. That's really the cherry on top. That's always a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thrift Behringer and I call it for Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We have been having a blast. I know that our paths crossed a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember, Van. I was the public address announcer for Russell County. Opelika was going down to Russell County. It was the final year that they were in 6A. They defeated Russell County 52-36. I remember Opelika was 3-3 in that game. Russell County was 5-1. They were having a great season under first-year head coach Dylan Griggs. Opelika with their head coach Eric Speakman, and they had a very talented sophomore quarterback. I knew he was going to be something special, Roman Gagliano. But you remember going down to Russell County, and I think we might have met. I'm not sure, but you were definitely there because I remember the radio broadcast for Opelika was there.
That's right. Yeah, we set up on the visiting side on the hill, and Coach Griggs got us. That was really a good spot over there. We just kind of pulled up and set up on the visiting side and did the game. That was actually Roman's first start in varsity, so it was a big night for him and a really good night through the air. So that was a good win for Opelika and Coach Griggs. That was kind of it was a huge game for them. I think that was one of their first big games with the new renovations to the stadium and the turf and the lights and everything. So it was a great atmosphere that night for football. And I do remember, now that you're talking about that, I do remember that.
Absolutely. It was a great season for Opelika. They made it to the second round of the playoffs. That was their final year in 6A. How is that transition going from 6A to 7A been a challenge for Opelika? You know, they went 5-5 last year, missed the playoffs, but we know that the teams in Region 7, in 7A Region 2, we know those teams are tough, like Central, Auburn, Enterprise, Dothan now. I mean, what is that transition like going from 6A to 7A?
Yeah, boy, I tell you, Richard, it's been tough. It's it's a gauntlet. Really, a lot of the top of the region we were playing anyway, even though when we were in 6A, we played Auburn and Central every year, and even when we were in 6A. So we still continued to play those. And the big problem, now it was, of course, had to do with, region implications now. So, if you lost those games when you were in 6A, it wasn't quite the end of the world. But now, of course, it being a region game, it puts that much more on the line. Last year, Opelika got the big win over Central, and the first time that we were able to knock off Central in 6 years, and kind of had everything going for the team. It was had won 4 straight games, and then on the home stretch found a loss at Prattville last year, and then ended up we actually lost 4 of the last 5 games and did not make the playoffs. So certainly the second half of the season last year was not good after what was a great start after knocking off Central and starting the season 4-0. And we even started off the season last year with a big win over Callaway, which was a come from behind win on the road. This year, it's kind of been, it's been a tough schedule. Our 2 scheduled games that were out of the region, you only have 2 games we can schedule out of the region, with it being a 9-team region. We scheduled Thompson, who we know Thompson's one of the best teams in the state, if not the best team in the state. And then we played the Theodore team that was really good. Last year, they came into Opelika and knocked us off. And this year, we made that long trip down and returned the trip. And they kind of had their backs against the wall, changing things with the quarterback position. And they ended up getting a good ground attack going in that game and beat us. So had a tough loss last week at Enterprise, a game that really would have punched our ticket to the playoffs. Enterprise was really playing with their season on the line last week. We had to win. We got to win one of our next 2 games. Of course, lost to Enterprise, but Enterprise really had to win last week or they were out. Their scenario was a 2 seed or bust, and they had to defeat us last week to keep their playoff hopes alive, and they did just that. And they really played, I think, with a little bit more edge than we did last week. So got to come out Friday night, homecoming, and we've got to pick up a win, or we'll be at home again before Halloween, which is very tough because our off week is next week, the week after Friday. So this is our last regular season game. So I know the Opelika fans, coaching staff, the players, they don't want to have any extra time to trick or treat like they did last year.
Definitely, Coach. Bulldog Stadium this Friday night. It's a win and in situation. Opelika is 4-5 overall, but they are 4-3 in the region. In comes to town the Dothan Wolves. Right now are 6-2, as they are tied with Auburn and Enterprise. And so if you do win, you'll get the tiebreaker with Dothan, which pretty much, looking at the playoff scenario, I mean, with Enterprise and Auburn, regardless of what happens there, this is a very tough game for Opelika, but they are playing at home. And I think that this team has shown a lot of promise. I mean, losing to Auburn 31-30 is still, it's a great, and played Central close. I mean, this is a very talented team. I mean, would the school and the staff, I mean, how disappointed would Opelika be if they did miss the playoffs this year?
It would be, it would be very disappointing. I mean, haven't missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons since back in the mid-90s. So, I mean, they're used to going to the playoffs. I think they only missed the playoffs twice in the last, 30-something years. So it's been a long time. So it would definitely be a big disappointment. And you mentioned the schedule. I mean, the Thompson game, when you look at it, it's a one-sided loss, but that game was a 10-point game with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. The Central Phoenix City loss on the road at Phoenix City was a 3-point game with 2.5 minutes to go. We had actually scored out a 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game, and really all the momentum we felt like was on our side. And then kind of a weird kickoff in that game. We kicked it down to the 1-yard line, and it didn't go in the end zone. It bounced back to the 5-yard line, and the returner for Phoenix City had missed the ball. So when he went to run and catch the ball, we kind of got out of our lanes, and he grabbed the ball and went and reversed field on us and ran the kickoff back for a touchdown. And just like that, boom, it was kind of the ball game. So, 2 of the really best teams in the state, I think, in Thompson and Central, well, we went toe-to-toe with for majority of those games. Thompson was able to pull away big in that fourth quarter on some big pass plays, but if we play to the level that we know we're capable of playing, we feel like we can play with anybody and beat anybody in the state. But we just can't come out right now and make mistakes this late in the season. And sometimes it's hard to get back rolling when you kind of have lost some games, and the motive, not motivation, but I guess the momentum, is not really on your side. Whereas Dothan had a big win over Enterprise, and they had an off week, so they're coming in with a lot of motivation and a lot of momentum too. So both of our seasons are on the line. So the one good thing is we've got this game at home. We play really good at home and have played really good at home this season.
Opelika's big game this Friday. I can't wait. And I hope that Opelika is able to get this win and they can get into the playoffs. Opelika football. I mean, what is that atmosphere like at Bulldog Stadium? Just you get to be the voice and call the play-by-play and really paint a picture of what Opelika football is like. But what is that atmosphere like at Bulldog Stadium on a Friday night?
Well, I tell you, it's hard to match it anywhere else in the state. I've had a chance to go around, and we've played in some really good atmospheres. Central's got a great atmosphere. Auburn's got a great atmosphere. Just in our region, there's some great atmospheres. But if you get a big game inside Bulldog Stadium, it's almost like your SEC West type home field advantages, like at Auburn and Alabama and the Florida, in the swamp in Georgia, and in Florida and in Athens, and it's like that at the high school level a little bit, because it can really give you an edge playing at home. And just a few weeks back, I mean, the atmosphere was just incredible when we hosted Auburn, and it always is in that game. But I even talked to Coach Keith Etheridge, the coach at Auburn, and he just was talking about the atmosphere. He says just unbelievable, in that game. And it's worth some points, I think. It's worth some points, if you were – in college, they kind of make those betting lines, and they give you a little edge when you're playing at home. And it's like that in high school. The marching bands, the crowd. I mean, we'll have just about 10,000 packed in there on a big game, and I expect Dothan to bring a big crowd with their season on the line Friday night. And I get to do it with one of the legends at Opelika, and Coach Spence McCracken, who's a Hall of Fame coach at Opelika. So he really makes our broadcasting, adds a lot to it with his, coaching knowledge, and also just his experience in football in general. So, Mac McCracken, his son, is our sideline reporter. So we've got some good guys on our crew that help make our broadcast possible too. And of course, the fans always add that excitement on the broadcast. The atmosphere couldn't be it without them. And it's going to be a lot of fun Friday night. I just hate that this is the last home game of the season. And you hope somehow in a playoff scenario you were to get a home game. But in 7A, it's a little less likely than it was in 6A.
You're right, Van. I can't believe that the high school football season is almost over. I know that we're transitioning into high school basketball, but when the season is over, do you call other sports for Opelika? Or have you called basketball or baseball as well?
We do. We try to pick out some of the schedules. We just don't have the I wish I had time to go do all of them. It just with our time and that sort of thing, and full-time job and family, it's we try to pick out some of the big games. We'll do the main key region games, and then in baseball we'll try to pick out the key region matchups as well. So we will broadcast some. We'll put out our broadcast schedule, and we'll do some girls and boys basketball. And last year we were able to do a softball game for the first time. So we're working in and adding some more sports. And in years past, we've also done some of the flag football games for the girls football team
Nice.
at Opelika, which is we try to spread it around and do as much as we can. So I really enjoy it. I'd love to be there I'd love to call just about play-by-play for anything I could. So it's always a lot of fun.
Absolutely. It is a lot of fun. It doesn't really matter the sport. I'm the same way as a play-by-play announcer. It really doesn't matter the sport. I'll call soccer. I'll call flag football, even lacrosse. I mean, I just love play-by-play. But in your broadcasting career as a play-by-play announcer, what are some of the most memorable calls? Like, do you have like a favorite call that you want to just save in the archive and play because the excitement, the intensity? Do you have moments like that in your broadcasting career, and does one stand out?
Oh, definitely. Well, just most recently, the Central game last year, that got shared around. We had a game-winning kick in overtime to beat Central for the first time in 6 years. That's one of probably the biggest calls I've had since being at Opelika. And before that, it would had to be the second round win against Spanish Fort. We had some great calls in that game to finally beat those guys. They had a good run against us. So really one that got brought up in my early broadcasting career was one of my first years at Smith Station when we went to Enterprise. I remember this because, it was hard to forget. We hit a Hail Mary from about the 50-yard line to knock off Enterprise in one of the craziest endings I've ever been a part of. Everything was pretty much, the game was over. We're at midfield and dropped back and threw one of those Hail Marys that you just never see. And I was actually broadcasting with a legend in Moose Godwin, who was one of the most winning coaches in Lee County history. And he's a Smith Station legend. He's got several different buildings named after him at Smith Station High School. And he was with me on that call, and that was something I'll never forget. But a Hail Mary win, it was crazy. It was one of those left everybody in awe. And that call in that game, that was back before everybody had NFHS network. So really everybody was listening to the radio call. It got shared around and played on the loudspeakers at Smith Station High School for a few days afterwards on the loudspeaker, I think, for the morning announcements for a while.
Absolutely. Van, I can't wait to hear you on the call this Friday night. Opelika taking on Dothan down in the Columbus area. People who want to listen to the game, they could listen on the radio app on Kicker 97.7.
That's right. You can find us at kickerfm.com. You can listen on the iHeartRadio app. You can just search Kicker FM. If you do have an NFHS account, the Opelika games, they take our broadcast on the television side on the video stream as well. So you can basically hear the radio call on the NFHS network as well. So plenty of ways to follow along with us. And I sure hope we're talking about punching our ticket and making some trips to head south. We'll be paired up with the Mobile region. So, sometimes you don't want to make a trip to Mobile, but that would be the best case scenario for us, is planning a trip to Mobile in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Well, Van, we definitely have to text each other back and forth Friday night. Thrift Behringer and I will be in Lafayette for Glenwood at Chambers Academy. So we're not going to be too far from Opelika. So, yeah, we definitely got to give each other score updates on both those games.
That's going to be a good one. I grew up actually in the AISA. I graduated from Hooper at Emory. And so I grew up in the AISA. So it was quite a jump in football and different atmospheres in the 6 and 7A, but I love some good, small private school action. And that Glenwood Chambers game is going to be big, of course, being that that's going to be the last time they'll play too. So with Glenwood moving to the AHSA.
Of course. Yes. Well, Van, before I let you get out of here, tell all my listeners where they could find you on social media and where they can listen to you on the radio.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Van_Riggs. That's VAN_RIGGS. You can listen mornings on 97.7 Kicker FM. Again, same place as the Opelika games on Friday nights, and then afternoons 3 to 7 on South 1061 and 1017, and their website, mysouth1061.com. And pretty much on everywhere else on Friday nights around on the Opelika games.
Well, Van, it has really been fun. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, being on the show, and have a great call this Friday night against Dothan. I can't wait for that game.
I appreciate it, Richard. I hope it's a good one. I hope we keep playing. I don't want to end the season before Halloween. I'd rather, not have a lot of extra time to go trick-or-treating.
That is Van Riggs, everybody. He is the voice of the Opelika Bulldogs. As Opelika, it is a win and in situation this Friday night at Bulldog Stadium as they will take on the Dothan Wolves. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching on Facebook Live and listening to us on WQEE. Another episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge, and we will talk to you later. Have a great rest of your